I am a 31-year-old man married to Kat, a 30-year-old woman. We have been together for 4 years, married for 2. Until recently, I believed our relationship was strong and built on mutual trust and respect. However, the last 2 months have shaken my perception of our marriage to its core. It all started when Kat approached me with a suggestion that blindsided me. She wanted to open our marriage. I was utterly shocked. In all the years I had known her, I never imagined she would propose such a thing. An open marriage is a dangerous path, one that often leads to pain and heartbreak for at least one partner, if not both. I made my stance clear immediately. I was not comfortable with an open marriage. It wasn't about being closed-minded or afraid of new experiences. I simply valued our bond too much to involve a third person in our relationship. My love for her was deep, and I wanted any excitement or new experiences to be within the framework of our commitment to each other. She was visibly disappointed by my refusal, which was rare, as I usually went out of my way to make her happy, even if it required compromise. Though she didn't argue with me, I could sense the tension between us growing. She withdrew emotionally, making herself less available for conversations or intimacy. I wanted to understand the reason behind her sudden interest in an open relationship, but she became increasingly distant. Initially, I began questioning myself. Was I failing her in some way? Was she dissatisfied with our intimacy? I wanted to talk to her about it, but our conflicting work schedules made communication difficult. Kat worked long hours, often adjusting to different time zones due to her job, while I had a more stable schedule within our time zone. The few times we were home together, she seemed distracted, and I felt guilty for shutting down her requests so quickly without fully understanding her reasoning. 2 weeks after our initial conversation, I tried to bridge the gap. I prepared her favorite meal, hoping to create a comfortable atmosphere where we could talk openly. She appreciated the effort, and for the first time in weeks, we enjoyed a warm evening together. Seizing the moment, I brought up the topic again, asking her to explain why she wanted to open our marriage. To my surprise, she became defensive, accusing me of playing mind games. Taken aback, I clarified that I only wanted to understand her perspective, not argue. When I pressed further, asking if she was unhappy with our intimacy, she finally opened up. She told me that the young interns at her office, most in their early 20s, lived recklessly, partying, hooking up, and sharing wild stories. Hearing about their experiences made her feel like she had missed out on something in life. I listened carefully and sympathized with her feelings. It's natural to feel tempted by the excitement of something new. However, I explained why I wasn't comfortable with her suggestion. Before meeting her, I had experienced that lifestyle. The parties, the flings, the meaningless encounters. While thrilling in the moment, it always left me feeling empty. Meeting her changed everything. She became my anchor, my home. I wanted stability, a deep connection, and a future together, not fleeting thrills. Despite my firm stance, I told her that if an open marriage was something she truly wanted, we could discuss it further. But to my surprise, she immediately dismissed the idea. She nodded along as I spoke, seeming to understand my perspective. I thought we had reached common ground, but I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a drastic change in her behavior. She became increasingly irritable, snapping at me over minor inconveniences. She mocked me, calling me outdated whenever I brought up relationship values. When I asked her to elaborate, she accused me of being rigid and unwilling to evolve with modern trends. At the same time, her work schedule became more demanding. Initially, she worked late a few nights a month, but soon she was staying late almost every night, sometimes coming home just before dawn. When I expressed concern, she insisted she was working toward a promotion and needed to prove herself. While I admired her ambition, something felt off. Then came the night that changed everything. One evening, I decided to surprise her by cooking lasagna, her favorite. By 10 p.m., I texted her, asking when she'd be home. She replied that she'd be working late and wouldn't return until after midnight. Disappointed, I distracted myself with video games but couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. On impulse, I decided to pick her up from work as a surprise. When I arrived at her office around 12:30 a.m., I waited for 45 minutes but she never came out. Concerned, I went inside and asked the receptionist about her whereabouts. To my shock, I was told she had already left hours ago. Confused and worried, I rushed home, but she wasn't there either. When she finally returned around dawn, I asked where she had been. She casually claimed she had been in meetings until 2:30 a.m. But that didn't add up. The receptionist had told me she left much earlier. Either the receptionist was mistaken, or Kat was lying. A few days later, my suspicions were confirmed. Kat's phone was usually locked, but one evening, as she spoke to her mother on speakerphone, I noticed her screen was unlocked. Notifications popped up. Messages suggesting secret meetups. My heart pounded as I opened her social media DMs. My worst fears were realized. She was having multiple affairs. Shaking, I checked her gallery for further proof. It was filled with explicit pictures of her with her co-workers. Overcome with nausea, I locked myself in the bathroom and emailed all the evidence to myself before deleting the history. When I stepped out, I handed her the phone without a word. She had already realized what I had done and was pounding on the door in panic. Without confronting her, I left the house, driving aimlessly until I reached the location where she had planned to meet one of her lovers. I sat in the hotel lobby, drinking heavily as I waited. When she finally arrived, my world shattered. I confronted her with sarcasm, wishing her luck with her fun ride. She grabbed my hand, begging to explain, but I pulled away and walked out. I ended up at my best friend Lee's apartment, passing out on his doorstep. When I woke up 16 hours later, he helped me clear my mind. He advised me to freeze our joint accounts, change all my passwords and get tested for STDs. Though I didn't care about the money at that moment, I followed his advice. When I turned on my phone, I saw over 100 missed calls and countless messages from Kat, begging for forgiveness. I blocked her on every platform. 2 months later, I began rebuilding my life. I moved in with Lee and started the divorce process. Kat refused to sign the papers, instead trying to blame me for her actions, claiming I had encouraged her to gain experience. When that failed, she demanded alimony, claiming emotional distress. Her downfall came when her affairs became office gossip. The very interns who had inspired her reckless behavior leaked her explicit photos to senior executives. Her reputation was ruined, and she was forced to resign in disgrace. I no longer care about her fate. All I know is that I will never let betrayal blindside me again.